guys, here from Pax Europiana. I will show you Elbasan, this big industrial asset here in the middle of Tirana, Albania, of Albania. And it's a big leftover from the communist times. Look at it, yeah. The situation is in the 1960s and 70s, the communist Chinese have done really very serious industrialization effort here on the request of the Albanian government. They invested in a steel factory, in a metallurgic kind of complex, and we are in the middle of it. And also there is now, and that's inspiring, a lot of Albanian SMEs are renting or privatizing some part of this industrial assets, and they are revitalizing it with small companies, and they are really very good entrepreneurs. But the task is enormous. Look at it, what a big piece of land it is. And it's very problematic inheritance with environmental pollution, with the fact that this place of course needs to be cleaned up, the water, the waste, the old factories. And this is absolutely needed that the European Union takes responsibility for Albania and for these assets inside the European Union. Then you can clean it up. It's absolutely possible. And it's actually a big economic asset, such an industrial land. And you can show you here what a kind of a conglomerate of, I think it's 6 or 7 big industrial complexes, from steel to wood to tiles to chemicals, chrome smelter, nickel, all the minerals which are here on the mountains to Albania, and here over there, and that's the south towards Greece and towards Kosovo in the northeast and the Montenegro, is a lot of minerals. Then in the west here is Durrës, and they also have a railway here. So it's transported to the world market via Durrës, or partly as well via Montenegro. There is the railway connection where coal can come in and steel can go out. There's also a refinery here. Actually, it was a refinery in the past, yeah. But the political history of Albania, the political economic history of Albania is like this. From the 60s onwards, or from 56 basically, from the break with the Soviets, and they were then going until 1979 with the Chinese. And the Chinese wanted to help them, they wanted to develop that, but then it was never economically feasible to be autark in a sense. And then they have developed all these companies, and most of them in one place, in Elbasan. And if you look around, you see this enormous asset has of course major opportunities, and I guarantee you in the future this will be a highly valued industrial center of Europe. There's somebody who has invested already, very good, some modern company, and here these leftovers again, you see, it's quite striking, the contrast between old and new. And you see here then various, what I've just seen was an aluminium factory, was a steel factory, a small metal workshop, and these are ingots, zingots, zinc, of course. Zinc is very important here in the mountains. There's a lot of zinc, so you have a zinc smelter, you have also chrome smelter, that's more in the back here. Okay. This is here the Kurum, the steelwork. Some parts of it is taken over here by Chinese company, no, not Chinese, sorry, Turkish companies. They have taken over the chrome smelter and the steel works. But there is still a lot to be privatized and revitalized. And again, I call without public money, it is depending on individual entrepreneurs to take the risk. And then of course it looks like this, because some of this work shops, they can be here, for example. Another, it's modernized and actually very nice. Yeah, you see, there is what they are doing. They are also mostly all of them in some kind of metal workshop, and it all reminds me when I come from Upper Austria, from First, because First was also once in bankruptcy. Obviously, it never looked like this. Maybe after World War II, but it's now a really big and thriving economic asset for Linz and for Austria. So all these things must be revitalized. It cannot be left like this for decades to come. And inside the European Union, obviously we have action plans, or from the DG Environment and from the DG Industry, and we revitalize it together with the governments in question, and then the money comes from the European taxpayers, obviously, because a country like Albania with 2.5 and shrinking population, how should they? This is a European problem here. It's not a loan for Albania. You cannot say, hello Albania, fix all the problems of Albanian communism, it's your thing, and when you are beautiful and rich, then you can join the European Union. It's not like that, the world. And it's also a big mistake, and then we don't help the Albanian government and the Albanian entrepreneurs to create jobs here. Then the people, what should they do but leave, basically? And here there's opportunities aplenty, because there is this mining reservoirs up there with nickel, with zinc, with copper, with lead, with coal, and with chrome. And these are all very important minerals which up to now were all sourced from Russia. And we will disconnect from the Russian economy now completely. And we have already, and it will continue. So all the Russian minerals will be sanctioned. Now we have not fully sanctioned them, because we need them, but there is this mineral reserves here. So let's sanction and let's exclude Russia from the world markets in all these mineral sectors. In zinc, copper, lead, chrome, we don't need them. Iron. We can work then with the smaller markets which we have anyhow purposefully and sadly neglected in the last 30 years. So here is the opportunity. This must be one of the biggest industrial centers of Europe. And of course it needs public money for that. Of course this has to come from Brussels, because Albania alone, this must be in some ways a co-managed European zone, in my view. Because if you look at it how it is, now it's certainly 3 kilometers in all directions of industrial asset. Here scan, and I have no drone to show you the complete large. When you go on the mountains, you can see from the top how large the whole area is. It's unbelievable big. Man, I don't know outside of Ukraine if we have such industrial complexes. In Ukraine there are some, like in Zaporizhzhia and Dnipro, but of course, and the specific thing here in Albania, it is when the Chinese left, they let the technology, and then there was complete whatever kind of a freeze of economic activities in the 1980s, and then there was chaos in the transition with 96, 97 and the Kosovo War, and so we just have 20 years, and then gradually, without the external help, you cannot manage such a huge asset so easily. It's actually a very beautiful valley, and unfortunately there is a lot of environmental pollution. The Albanians always joke that how you call it, the rabbits have 5 legs here and 3 ears. Yeah? You know, it's not a very nice joke, but ultimately the situation is that there is a huge environmental burden for the people with all this metal industry residues, and with the chemical industry residues, and all these leftovers which are not addressed properly. And I think when we would have a targeted intervention to help Elbasan politically, financially, and also to restructure the whole companies here, this is a highly profitable investment for the European Union and for Albania and for everybody. And it's also cleaning up one of the biggest legacy of the communist times in Europe. And there's similar things in Mitrovica in Kosovo, I showed you. There's also to some extent in Macedonia, but here we're coming to Kurum, that's the Turkish steel company which has started which is working here. But when we systematically work here in a decent way, that would be fantastic. And it's great business for all involved. It's very good for the environment. It's very good for Europe. It's very good for Albania. I don't understand why this kind of distance is happening, or why this kind of detachment, as if Albania, but also Kosovo and also Serbia and also Bosnia. In Bosnia I saw similar kind of industrial complex leftovers. And we have a lot of experience in the last 30 years. The European Union and the 13 member states which came, or it's 11 communist countries, ex-communist countries who joined, they had very similar, maybe not in that size and maybe not in that complexity, but this was all over the place, from Lithuania, from Estonia to Bulgaria. And all these places were cleaned up. All these places are now decent European industrial areas. So why don't we engage seriously in getting this, helping with the cleanup process, helping with the revitalization process, and restructuring the companies where they need help, and giving them funding as well in decent levels. Because when you are a medium company here in the metal industry, for example, which there are several of them in the various aspects already, or in the mining smelting industry, what you have enormous problems in accessing finance. Yeah, that's or in the construction material industry, like here before, that's an isolation company, for example, or in aluminium, or in other sectors. There are many of them. Or in the energy sector, let's see, or construction material, I said already, but could be also, for example, in the food production industry. These are typical industries here in the region, and there is a lot of demand also for agricultural machinery, for example, or then upgrading the machinery a bit in the food processing or in the metal processing. These are really very good, or starting a bigger production line in any of the construction material areas. This is a good demand as well in Europe. And then we could also, there would be more production here, better jobs. I mean, the logic is there, I think. And when we are now in 2022, and this situation here looks exactly the same like it looked, I think, when the Chinese engineers left, okay, in the last they left in 40 years ago. In the meantime, China has from a 200 billion economy in a 15 trillion economy. And that's the economic development of China since Deng Xiaoping took power in 79. And here everything is more or less the same. Here, for example, somebody invested and there is some improvements. So that's you can see it. The one is privatized, the other is led to the state. But I think it's a very clear case that such an industrial area, when you have some entrepreneurial spirit and you invest in that and you produce something, and the EU is supporting it with better access to finance, because that's the big problem in this country. You have high interest rates, and you have very reluctant banking sector for funding, and you have few assets. And when there is no public funding for growth and for capital, for working capital, it's really very deeply problematic. For the energy sector, Albania has invested already, and that's some really big resource, because all these things in this sector, they will need a lot of energy. So we have now, in the last 15 years, with the hydropower project, I reiterate what a good success it was, because Albania had about 1,500 of production capacity. Now it's about 2,500. That's significant, 1,000 megawatt of installed additional capacity in the hydro. Thank you, Statkraft, and thank you all the Austrian investors and everybody who came here, and all the private investors who have also put the investment. That now hydropower has a bad name and this is criticized is completely ununderstandable. In reality, Albania needs certainly 1,000 megawatt each 5 years more if it wants to be a proper industrial country. Yeah. So you need in the solar and in the hydro and in wind and in also gasification of coal, yeah, and all these things. It must be certainly that the energy output generation must be doubling in the next 15 years. Yeah. This is very important. Otherwise, how to create employment? It is all energy intensive employment. Everything here is connected obviously with the minerals which come from these mountains over there. Also the cement industry. Yeah, which is basically the medium mountains are turned into cement, and up there in the bigger mountains towards Macedonia is all these metal resources. When you go on the highway, I've shown you on this podcast already, that the highway, it's cut basically through a mountain of chrome. On both sides you see the metals, not the rock, but metals. There's huge reserves in Kosovo as well. I have made already that video, you've seen it, 1 trillion is under Kosovo underground. And it needs, of course, public investment to lift it. But there's 1 trillion of material down there in coal, nickel, chrome, similar like here. So now we have invested in all these highways. Now it's time to invest in the energy infrastructure and in the railway infrastructure. and then to revitalize the industrial development based on mining and metals. And this will be a huge sector for the coming years. But the EU has to take the responsibility for funding and for cooperation and for getting this done. And then the life of the Albanians will not only depend on export of minerals and of tourism in the summer, and of course the construction industry and whatever kind of remittances and some additional sector of I have to use my belt on the motorway, otherwise I don't feel very secure. This is a fantastic motorway actually, and a fantastic infrastructure for energy. It is really amazing. Here you see the 400k line which goes to Macedonia and connects Tirana with Elbasan and goes south to Greece as well and north to Montenegro. So it's very connected country in the energy sector already, and in the highways, of course, about 2 billion euros are missing still for the highway to Greece and the highway to Montenegro and the highway to Macedonia, maybe 2.5 billion. But in the energy sector already there is significant progress. And now the Kosovo and Albanian energy sectors will be united. So now we need energy investors. We need in both countries minimum 2,000 megawatts, and also in Macedonia. And then industrial development of a European style is absolutely possible with that opportunities in these mountains. And of course the infrastructure links towards the sea. With the new deep sea port, you can bring really serious ships into the new harbor, Porto Romano, and you will have a railway connection to Kosovo, and that will be revitalized it to Macedonia and to Greece, and everything looks very different in 10 years. But in my view, this requires that Albania, Montenegro and North Macedonia, all three, join the European Union, not in 10 years, but in 3 years. And politically it's absolutely doable. Economically it's absolutely doable. Security-wise and politically these countries are fully integrated in the Western world. So it's absolutely doable. It's just cultural prejudices and lack of responsibility and whatever kind of EU reform, meaning they don't want to share power with these three countries. And of course the question of Serbia, the big problem in the Balkans. And this is holding us back. Because imagine, once in the EU, the regulatory alignment goes much faster and we have much better regulatory access to the countries, and of course investors feel much safer to come here, and then suddenly this kind of Gordian knot of underdevelopment of Albania historically will be solved, and then this country will move so smoothly towards the next and to the upper level of economic development, and it's potentially a very rich country because of its natural resources. Let's not forget, I didn't talk so much about it, there's about 1 billion of barrels of oil underneath as well, and I'm sure there must be gas somewhere, even when it was not found. But it took some years to find the gas in Turkey and in Israel and in Egypt, and there was a lot. And why shouldn't there be gas when it's in the Black Sea and in the Aegean? Why shouldn't there be gas in the Adriatic, especially under the conditions of Albania, where there is oil under the sand of the sandy beaches of Albania? So the logic is there will be a lot of gas as well. And there is already gas via the Trans-Adriatic pipeline. And then is of course the question already of the LNG terminal in Flora. And then there will be the gas pipeline up north. And so we are in a good situation here. And so I call everybody to invest here, to take the challenge very seriously, but to see as well that it's not so risky as it was in the past. Yeah? When the Austrians invested in the Rogner Hotel in '92, that was really risky. And it worked out very well. When the Austrians invested in the energy sector in the 2000s, that was also kind of risky still, and it worked out very well. And when now the times are really absolutely critical in the European security challenge, actually Albania is a very stable country. It's in NATO, it's a EU candidate country, so it's absolutely there to invest, and the infrastructure is already there. See the 400 kV, see the motorway. Of course the railway is still a crisis, but at least it exists, the connection. But the port is very good, and that matters a lot, and you can really do business here in Albania, and I recommend it. That's my introduction to Elbasan, my call for investments, and that's also my hope for fast track. And the tunnel, yeah, I will keep you showing you the fantastic tunnel, then I will stop here, but you just to see Durres, here the port of Durres, and then the road to Tirana. You can see very well here. They have painted the ship as a sign. And then you have these two tunnels. The one tunnel I showed you already on the Kosovo side, and that's the northern tunnel to northeast to Kosovo. And here, this is the big achievement of the highway construction project of Albania. Here, the tunnel from Tirana to Elbasan. I can tell you that I was driving over there so often with the beautiful road up there, but behind every bend there was a Mercedes on the wrong side, and it was very dangerous up there. And it took 1.5 hours. Now we are in 25 minutes from Elbasan to Tirana. It's amazing. And what I hope is that Bechtel will now build from Elbasan the highway towards Ohrid, because the Macedonians given Bechtel already that highway concession from Ohrid to Skopje. And then there will be a ring of highways from Skopje to Ohrid, going to Elbasan, to Tirana, then north to Kosovo, and it will be all finished. You can just drive a wonderful cycle around the Kosovo, Macedonia and Albania, and it will be also the highway connected towards Montenegro, which is so important actually, that the northern highway is done here, bypassing Tirana and then connecting with Shkodra and with Podgorica. I will show it to you tomorrow when I go to Podgorica, that there is a lot of investment necessity still, and it's absolutely required that the EU is funding this highway project, and also Bechtel to build it, because they know how to do it and they do it best. So here is now the tunnel, which was actually done by a Greek company, Actor, and okay, that was a competitive tender, and they did it very well actually. Here it's now the tunnel towards Tirana, and here you see this is a piece of proper European infrastructure now in Albania. And Albania is absolutely ready to invest, and it welcomes international investment. The tax rates are low with 15%, could be 10, but it's 15, but it's 8. I hear 8 now, my friend says it's 8. So the taxes are low, and the currency is stable. It could be the euro, as I call, but it's not happening immediately. But it's a stable currency, and it's a good condition to invest, and that's what I call for. Thanks a lot for your attention, and please subscribe this channel. More to come from Pax Europiana. Bye.